Hi, Solituders, and welcome back to Solitude with Soleil. I know you've missed me, and I missed you too. We took a little time to reset and recalibrate, and if you're new here, thank you for joining me. This is Solitude with Soleil, where I share my thoughts with you in solitude, directly from my mind to the mic. And in this space, I really pride myself on practicing what I speak. And if you've been with me for a while, you know we've talked a lot about listening to our bodies and honoring our limits. And burnout, guys, it's real. So I paused, I breathed, and I let myself reset. But now I'm back, refreshed, realigned, and ready. Let's do a little recap though, shall we? So far, we've been doing some real soul searching together. We've talked about breaking emotional tethers and freeing ourselves from the past. We've explored empathy, emotional intelligence, and what it means to lead with compassion. We've gone deep into building inner resilience in solitude. We've held space for grief and pain. And most recently, we had a personal musical reflection to honor the healing journey. That's a lot of emotional heavy lifting. And honestly, I'm so proud of us. Now, I want to share something with you. Together, we've actually been forming something that mirrors a therapeutic relationship. And while I'm not a licensed professional, I've learned so much through my own therapeutic journey. And my hope is to make some of those simple healing tools accessible to all of us here. Just like in therapy, we don't just dive into the deepest stuff right away. We build trust, we build comfort, and we create safety. Just like we've done here. Based on the comments, the shares, and especially the private messages I've received, I feel like we've actually been doing that work together and we're ready to go deeper. And can I just say, those private messages touch me on another level because public comments are beautiful, but the private ones, they show that someone sat with what I said, that they carried it beyond the moment and it stirred something real and they took the time to personally message me. And I'm so grateful. Some of you have even messaged me saying, where's the podcast? I miss it. And trust me, I've heard you. I've been dealing with a few personal things of my own behind the scenes, a funeral, processing grief. And again, burnout is real. But just like in one of our last episodes where we talked about David, his quiet season still ended in victory. So during my quiet season, I was preparing, and now I have so much more in store for you for this upcoming season. Oh, and yes, we are in the crusade period at my church right now, so I've been participating in the services and will continue to, which means I've been finding that balance and shifting my posting schedule a bit. So in all, I can say that I am back, and this new season, it's going to be so much deeper. So take a deep breath, get your journal, because this is Friday Night Food, where we dive deep into reflection. And let's begin. All right, Bible breakdown besties. Now, I know some of you know the story of Job, but I want us to look at it with fresh eyes today. Not just a Bible story, but as a real emotional case study. Today, we're going to be talking about standing firm in the face of a smear campaign, the case of Job, and emotional regulation. Because what Job went through, it mirrors what we now call in psychology today a smear campaign. And I'll be real with you, I've lived through a smear campaign many times. I've had people twist my story, distort my name, and wait for me to emotionally unravel. Just like we'll explore how Satan waited for Job to crack and curse God. But before we go even further, let's pause and give some context. Because I know not everyone listening is a churchgoer or familiar with biblical stories. And here at Solitude with Soleil, this is a safe space for everyone. So, who is Job? Job was a man in the Old Testament. The Bible describes him as blameless and upright. Now, I want us to stick a pin on that. He was wealthy. He had land, livestock, servants, and a big family. He wasn't just rich in material things. He was rich in faith. He was wise, and he was deeply respectful toward God. Job was the kind of person who would pray on behalf of his kids just in case they had done something wrong. He covered his home spiritually. He lived with integrity. He wasn't perfect, but he was sincere. So when Satan comes before God in his heavenly courtroom scene, he basically challenges Job's entire character. He says, Job only serves you because you've blessed him. Take away all of his blessings and he'll curse you. God permits Satan to test Job, but with limits. He says you can touch what he has, but not Job himself. So just like that, in a short span of time, Job loses everything. His children die, his wealth is destroyed, his name is dragged, his friends turn into critics. His wife tells him, just curse God and die. He doesn't know why it's happening. He doesn't know he's being watched, studied, and used as a case study in spiritual resilience. All he knows is this: I didn't do anything wrong, but everything around me is falling apart anyway. And who wouldn't crash out? Us Gen Zers, we know what crash out means. Crash out is like, who wouldn't just start lashing out and cursing and just be emotionally dysregulated? And maybe you felt that way too, like you've been doing your best, you've been praying, growing, healing, staying out of drama, but somehow it still finds you. People still twist your name, your peace still gets tested. And you're left asking the same question I had when I reread this story as an adult. Why would God allow this? That's why we're sitting here tonight, because maybe there's something deeper God wants to show us in these stories about our identity, about our integrity, about our emotional regulation, and what it really means to be emotionally grounded when you're under spiritual, social, emotional attack. So let's exhale together. Grab your blanket, your journal to take some notes, your tea, whatever keeps you relaxed tonight. And let's walk through this together. This episode is going to be a bit longer because I've gotten a few complaints that my episodes are getting too short. And hey, I'm not mad. If you want longer content, I'll give it to you. But before we dive into the biblical story tonight, I want us to start with the psychology. Because smear campaigns don't just show up in Bible stories. They show up in something deeper. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and in spiritual abuse. So let's unpack it. Yes, I said it. Spiritual abuse is a thing. The word smear campaign, what is it? Have you ever been in a situation, maybe with a disgruntled coworker, you've maybe left a friend group, and then suddenly the energy around you changes? You walk into the room and it feels like they were talking about you. Everything feels heavy. People are moving awkward towards you. It's tense. And you wonder, what's happening? What do they know? What were they told? Why is everyone acting so weird? That feeling, that shift, it's quite possible you're experiencing a smear campaign. Or maybe you've heard back verbatim what was said. But if you're in one, or if you've ever faced one, my thoughts are with you. It's a deeply painful, confusing, and emotionally taxing space to move through. But if we can break it down together, if we understand what it is, what it's designed to do, and how to move through it wisely, then we can begin to reclaim our power in spaces where it was once stolen. So what is a smear campaign? Let's make something clear right now. A smear campaign is not the same as someone sharing their story about the harm they have faced. It's not the same as someone speaking the truth. Here's the difference. A smear campaign happens before someone can speak. It's preemptive. It's intentionally designed to attempt to emotionally dysregulate, damage your reputation before you have the chance to speak. It's not about healing. It's not about speaking the truth. It's about silencing and controlling the narrative. And the goal is simple, to make others question you before they even hear from you. And when that happens, your coworkers, your church community, even your family, they start seeing you through someone else's filter. So by the time you do speak up, your voice is met with skepticism, distance, disbelief, or worse, silence. But what does a smear campaign really want from you? At its core, it's a trap. And as we dive deep into Job's story to see how Satan trapped him by his narrative, you'll see that a smear campaign is a psychological test of your restraint, your emotional control, and your ability to stay grounded when you are being emotionally provoked. It's not always about proving something. It's about them pushing you to react in a way that matches the stories they've told. Let's break it down further. There are 3 parts to a smear campaign that I've come up with, and buckle up for the psychological tools today, because as I've said, I trust you. I believe in you guys. We've done the heavy work together in the past 5 episodes, and I feel that you're ready for something more. So, a smear campaign happens before you can speak. They plant seeds, they maybe twist the stories, use your past, your old wounds, trauma, vulnerability, so that when people look at you, they don't actually see you. They see the version of you that someone else planted or painted. And that version is often distorted enough to make people look at you weird, or in our Gen Z terms, make people look at you crazy. And then next, it's baiting for you to give a reaction that confirms like, oh yeah, they're really crazy for real. And this is one of the most manipulative parts. The person behind the smear campaign doesn't go for surface level stuff. They go deep. They poke wounds you've confided in them about in the past, maybe. They say things, maybe even publicly, that are designed to trigger you, to make you seem paranoid. And when you react emotionally, which is completely understandable, by the way, if you crash out, they might step back and say, see, I told you they were unstable. I told you he was bitter. And next, it's public. Oh, that just sounds so awful. Yeah, this is a really awful cocktail, guys. It's public. it's not a private misunderstanding so that maybe if you did crash out a little, that no one would really see. No, it's in public. It's calculated and done in front of others because it needs witnesses to be effective. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone calls you a thief behind your back. Then one day they slip a bracelet into your bag, and in front of everyone, they find it and yell, "You stole from me, you're a thief." You're shocked, you're triggered, you're humiliated, and you respond emotionally. "I didn't take it. I'm not a thief. You know that you planted that." And maybe you start cursing them out like, "Get away from me, you this and you that." But now to the people who are watching, you look like the guilty party. You look defensive, you look unstable because they step back and they are calmly watching you unravel. And now the story that they've created matches your reaction. They probably already told the onlookers that, yeah, they have a short fuse, they are unstable, they're crazy. And then finally, when they plant this, framing narrative on you, when you react, they're like, yep, that's exactly who I told you they were. Yeah, it encompasses psychological and deep emotional abuse. But here's where I love to give you hope. Today, we're going to be working through this. We're going to be dismantling it together, and we're going to be regulating our nervous system so that even if this has happened to you in the past, it never happens to you again. But here's the final part that makes a smear campaign so insidious. It creates what's known as plausible deniability. And that's exactly as the name states, for them to deny it. This is where it gets really hard because smear campaigns are rarely ever as blunt as someone, calling you out of your name, because maybe then if they did, your reaction might be justified, right? No, they've crafted it just vague enough to give the person who started it deniability, so that if you speak out, it might sound like, well, you're just reading too deep into things. That wasn't about you. It was just a general topic. Wow, why are you so emotional? But inside, and they know. They know exactly what they're doing. And you're stuck in a difficult position between two painful choices. You speak up and risk looking irrational or erratic, or you stay silent and let the false narratives about you spread. Because it's designed to make you look unstable, while the person behind it looks calm and unbothered. And that fact is why emotional regulation becomes so vital, and something that I promise you that we'll work on today. But this is what Job went through in my psychological breakdown of the story. Or another or fresh perspective. And I'm open to all perspective, but this is the one I want to drive home today. And in just a moment, we'll look at how he handled it, what it cost him and what it teaches us, and how we can apply those lessons today. But before we get there, let's just take a deep breath. And remember that you are not overreacting. And if you've ever been through a smear campaign, there's healing and clarity waiting for you right here. Now that we've broken it down, let's get back to the story of Job. So, as we said in the beginning, Job was seen as blameless and upright. He was a man of integrity. Satan wanted to prove that Job was only serving God and only, righteous and full of integrity because he had everything. And his accusation was, if you take everything from him, he'll curse you. It's a brutal story, but also a beautiful reflection. You see, Job lost everything: his health, his wealth, his family, and still he didn't curse God. He grieved, he mourned, he processed his losses, yes, but he didn't fulfill the narrative that was placed on him, which was cursing God. And what happened in the end? He was restored. He received even more than he had before. So if we reframe this through the lens of the framework of a smear campaign that we just walked through, it's clear. A narrative was planted. Satan said, Job only serves you, God, because he's comfortable. And if Job had cursed God when the things were taken away, his reaction would have confirmed the lie. That's exactly how smear campaigns work today. Let's take a shift for a second. Do you remember the story about the temptation of Jesus? This part I'm still personally unpacking, but it ties in, I think. When Jesus fasted for 40 days and nights, Satan came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread, in Matthew 4 verse 3. That wasn't just a temptation, it was a baiting strategy. Satan knew who Jesus was, but he tried to provoke Jesus into proving it. Sound familiar? That's what smear campaigns do. They say, if you're really not what they say you are, if you know who you are, then why should you be bothered? But they also say, react, prove it, show us. But Jesus didn't. He answered with truth, not anger, with wisdom, not pride. But here's the thing. I love to tie in the humanity of all of this. Jesus was perfect. What about me? And that's where we struggle, right? Because Jesus was perfect. He had no flaws, no past. So of course he could stay calm. But us, we have history. We've been hurt. We've lashed out. We've reacted. So when someone takes a half truth or a personal detail and weaponizes it, it's so hard to not speak or not clarify or not defend. Because here's the double-edged sword I talked about. If you react, it confirms their narrative. And if you stay silent, it feels like their story wins. So what do we do? Here's the spiritual and psychological tie-in. The Bible offers so many tools for navigating these situations. The first is something you've probably heard so many times: be still. In worldly terms, it's be calm. The word says, be still and know that I am God in Psalm 46 verses 10. Remember, the goal of a smear campaign is to provoke an emotional reaction from you that makes you look unstable or crazy in Gen Z terms. Refuse to give them that. Stillness is strength. The second thing is to pray. Prayer is powerful. In the word, it says, make your petitions known to God. And in the world, sometimes you'll hear someone say, keep your receipts, sis. But remember, the Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still. Exodus 14, verse 14. Your prayers are documentation in heaven. And here's a psychological tie-in that I'd like to give you. Use the JADE method. It's an acronym for don't justify, argue, defend, or engage. Jesus didn't chase down all of his accusers to correct what they believed about him. He spoke the truth and walked away. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26, verse 4. And the most powerful tool I'd like to leave is number 4. Go completely no contact. This one is really hard but necessary. If someone continually baits you, disrespects your boundaries, or publicly undermines your character, you are not obligated to continually give them access. Block them on social media, on your phone, and in your spirit. Your silence isn't weakness, it's clarity. They can't handle indifference, so they'll keep trying. They'll bait you, provoke, poke old wounds, but remember, they need your reaction to validate their story. And if you don't respond, there is so much power in that. And here's where we'll tie in somatic regulation and emotional safety. Now I want us to shift into something practical and healing. Somatic processing. Now this is not therapy, but it is a reflection of what I've learned through my own healing journey. And disclaimer, your body is wise and complex, so if at any point this feels triggering, feel free to pause or step away. Your emotional safety comes first. One of the most powerful tools you can access in this moment is your breath. Why? Because when you're under emotional threat, your body shifts into what's known as fight or flight. This is your sympathetic nervous system preparing to defend, attack, or escape. Now I'm going to get a little clinical here, but stay with me. Breathing gently and intentionally activates what's known as your parasympathetic nervous system, the system that's responsible for your rest, digest, healing, and calm. So let's try this whenever you feel emotionally dysregulated, whenever you hear something that you want to defend. Inhale for 4 seconds through the nose. Hold it for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the mouth for 4. And do that as many times as you please in 30 seconds or a minute. And that is your body's sacred reset. It'll calm you down and quite possibly save you from saying something that you'll regret later. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to defend your story to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. And you don't need to fight a war that you are personally not trying to fight by responding to every story that you hear. Because you are called to go forth. You see, Job grieved. He questioned. He even cried out to God in frustration, but he didn't curse God. He didn't collapse under that narrative that was placed on him. And even if you've made mistakes in the past, even if you've reacted before, you can reset today. Because this doesn't just happen in the Bible. It happens in families, friend groups, workplaces, churches. So learning this now, it'll save you later. And don't close this episode just yet. I've got one last powerful part coming next. The last section of our podcast will tie everything together, especially the power of silence. Stay with me. You're going to want to hear this. We've talked about the framework of smear campaigns. We've walked through biblical tools for surviving one. And now I want to talk about what smear campaigns serve to teach us. Because yes, smear campaigns are painful. They're isolating. They trap you between defending your name and preserving your dignity, and it can feel like a no-win situation. But here's the good news. When navigated with care and emotional wisdom, smear campaigns can be alchemized into tools for reflection. What was meant to destroy you can actually refine you. Let's walk through 3 powerful things that smear campaigns teach us. Number 1, who's really with us? Because, truth be told, if others believe a narrative about you that is so false without even talking to you to clarify it, they were truly never your support system to begin with. And it may sting, but it will help you to cleanse your circle. Number 2, it teaches us who we really are. Smear campaigns are designed to erode your identity, but they can also be the beginning of coming home to yourself. Take the time to ask, is any of this actually true? Why is this hurting me so deeply? Is there something here I haven't healed yet? And it might sound strange, but smear campaigns force self-reflection. And often, that reflection births a more honest and stronger version of you. And number 3, what still triggers us? Smear campaigns don't just wound, they reveal. If a specific accusation shakes you deeply, ask why. Is there a core memory, a former insecurity, a past version of you that still feels shame? Once we work through that trigger, we take their power away, and no one gets to weaponize our healing. And then there's Jesus. He was mocked, falsely accused, humiliated, tortured, lied on, and still he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23, verse 34. Letting them go is for you. But let's be real, we're not Jesus. We feel anger, we want justice, we want to explain ourselves, and those are valid feelings. But his example also reminds us of restraint. And it's not weakness, it's strength in sacred form. Now, let your peace disturb what anyone tries to destroy. Smear campaigns create a short-term win, but a long-term loss. Because here's the thing, they're never truly built on truth. And if we keep responding, we stay tied to the very past that we're trying to heal from. If we move forward and we heal and we regulate our emotions, eventually the person who keeps poking and prodding, they reveal themselves to actually look like a bully, while you are healing and you are growing and you are moving forward. Which is why, in the double-edged sword of a smear campaign, choosing to not respond is the more powerful option, because it gives you control over your future, over your healing, and over your growth. You have access to something that a smearer cannot replicate: peace, clarity, and the power to heal. And remember, God reminds us that he will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in him, in Isaiah 26, verse 3. And that, trusting in God and being at peace, that's your greatest arsenal. Use it to rise, use it to help others, use it to move forward and be free. Thank you for sitting with me in this sacred space. If this episode spoke to you, please feel free to share it, send it to a friend, journal about it, revisit it when you need to, and know that every time you choose peace over chaos, you are rewriting your story. I'm your host, Daniel, and this has been Solitude with Soleil, where we break down life, faith, and healing directly from my mind to the mic. See you next time. Bye.